It was very enlightening what we've heard these past two talks, and actually, our sharing with you today is very related to what have been discussed. In the start of January 2020, we've had so much disruption in our classes. If you see these words, walang pasok, that actually means no classes in Filipino. Back in January, Taal volcano erupted, removing classes or stopping classes in a very big province. And then COVID quarantine conditions happened during March. And then just recently, in these Burr months, September, October, November, December, we have had multiple number of typhoons coming in at short periods of times. The most would be four typhoons in just a span of 2 weeks. So it's been a very big challenge. And because of this, distance learning had to be enacted because face-to-face classes weren't really possible. However, many stakeholders from students and other groups have wanted more of an academic freeze for actual education to stop because their mindset was students were being left behind. Now, for us who will talk to you today, we're mostly biologists and natural scientists. It's difficult, very difficult to teach field and laboratory experiences to our students. And that's why I know that you experience stress, difficulty in wanting to provide meaningful but appropriate learning experiences. That's why we would like to share with you our insights as biologists teaching in tertiary education on how we've responded as an institution in applying some e-learning strategies which can be applied in the natural sciences and even in other fields. And quick preview, many of them you've actually heard from the last two presenters. So I am your main presenter today. My name's JC, but actually this presentation is a mixture of comments from multiple different teachers. Those of us teaching aquatic and terrestrial biology, microbiology, and many of them are here today. We have Sonia, Elfritzson, Nikki Dagamac, and in our group who are also teachers of natural biology, we have our department chair, Dr. Richard Pavia, and our current dean, Dean Papa, who are also teaching the same subjects as us. So the main objective of this presentation is simply to share with you how us faculty have collaborated with students and the administrators in response to this pandemic. Here, we've utilized the University of Santo Tomas UST Cloud Campus, which is provided by our Educational Technology Center. Within this one system, we have access to our learning management system, which is mainly Blackboard. We also have access to Google for Education and access to live video conferencing and even recorded ones like Zoom and Panopto. Within this presentation, we want to show you how we've shown intent in what we want to do for distance learning and how we faced challenges that obstructed us and what were the solutions that we tried to apply. We applied these 3 steps to these 3 concepts: how to deliver content, how to choose the assessments, and how to provide good feedback. So that will be the general theme of our short presentation. The first one would be giving us intent on content delivery. We know, as you've seen in the past presentations, that there's a necessary shift from face-to-face classes to a fully online class, moving from the Blackboard to our digital learning management systems. However, as you can see, logistics for both students and teachers are varying across different countries. And in the Philippines, we're actually dead last in terms of internet connectivity, which is just one of many challenges, not not showing the limitations of each student and teachers in terms of finances. So that's why the main learning methodology that we've applied to some of our classes, us teaching in the natural sciences, is the flipped classroom approach, most especially in this semester wherein we're teaching general ecology lecture. Here, we provide contents at the own pace of students by providing recorded lectures. And then when we do have live video classes, it's no longer just one-way mentoring. It's more of a discussion, review, synthesis, and feedback of what they've supposedly learned in those lectures. Here you can see our many students present in one of our video teleconferencing platforms. We don't ask them to open their cameras all throughout. Rather, usually we have a synthesis that lasts a good 10-15 minutes wherein their cameras are off. And then when we have discussion, we just turn it on so that we can see their reactions, their faces. But we don't ask them to keep it on all throughout. Now, to provide these learning options, we provide it in multiple possibilities. Of course, the first one would be to create lecture videos that they can watch and download. But students have limitations in bandwidth. That's why we also provide them the PDF files of the lesson notes or the PowerPoints, and then an MP3 file of the same lecture video. So if they want to simply read through it while listening, similar to an Audible, that would be possible. And here we show you how we provide that within our learning management system. It's very intuitive and it provides different options of different bandwidths. Now, that is with regards to content delivery. What about with providing assessments? We want, as an intention, to provide accessible assessments with actual learning value. But the problem is, in the Philippines and same sentiments across the globe, many people are contesting that assessments aren't really a good learning opportunity, and that if you just provide online quizzes, students have the opportunity to cheat, or if they have difficulty in internet connection, it will be difficult for them to keep up, most especially if internet connections would be intermittent. That's why, for our approach, specifically in general ecology lecture this semester, we provide two forms of assessment. Formative assessments, which are still itemized quizzes, but they're no longer included in the total grade. However, it acts as an access point quiz wherein students must take it and retake it again and again for a quiz to access the next lecture. It's not included in the grade, but they need to pass a certain level of score for them to see and show that they actually learned from the previous lesson. And then the summative assessments wherein actual scores come from are more of guided content creation using skills that scientists actually use. Now, this is an example of our access point test for example lecture 2. We show an access point test for lecture 2 using content from lecture 1. Now, once we deploy it, they can take it again and again and again, but they won't be able to access the next lecture until they get to a good score. So it's still formative assessment, but they don't have to be stressed and they don't have to cheat because thinking of it, it's not really included in their general score. Now, other than this, we provide opportunities for them to watch videos. For example, documentaries that they can utilize. And since it's a pandemic, we want them to watch it together so that it becomes more of a classroom type setting and they're not just alone and isolated. Now, this is an example of what we do in our classes. So here we access our course site, and then we provide uh, our Blackboard experience through the Ultra Course view. Here's an example of one of our assessments, wherein once we open it, it's guided content creation. They open it, and this particular one is for them to create a poster. Creating posters and infographics are important skills for scientists when they want to present their work to the general public. So here, you would wonder, how will we score these students? We ask them to create group work infographics. Well, the group work is collaborative in nature, but there is an option for us to grade them individually, wherein we ask students to place their content in each of these grids, and then we grade them based on a rubric. So even though it's collaborative group work, it still has an individual grading option. Now, other than this, we provide safe assign enabling to make sure to dissuade them from simply copying content from the internet when we want them to create essays. And we allow them to have conversations to discuss about how they can make their assessments. Now, the last concept, the first one is content delivery. Second one is assessment. The last one would be feedback. Student feedback is very important, and it helps us provide a learning pace and direction for us teachers and both administrators. However, the problem here is that most of the time we have a lot of pandemic stress, Zoom fatigue, and memo burnout. Here, it's very good that students, faculty, and administrators, both also group of faculty, created these infographics that help us remind the students and teachers of simple things rather than having to read very difficult uh, memos that are actually taxing to read. And these are initiatives that come both from teachers, students, and the administrators as well. We also have periodical consultations with the students, and also the university, through the College of Science, created online activities that are more of a helpful break and release from usual rote classes. One very interesting study that has been used by the College of Science is the Science Outcomes-Based Unified Project. It's an activity wherein one assessment is graded as 10% of the total grade of one subject, but the same output is graded for other subjects within the course being taken. That way, there are limited assessments and students are not so burdened with so many things that they have to do, but rather they focus on quality. So the final point to ponder on across all of these activities would be, first, our exploration of the flipped classroom approach, giving students necessary breathing space for self-paced learning. We use short checkpoint tests as formative feedback. They're not included in the grade, but they have to get some level of competency to move up. And then we use outcomes-based content creation tasks rather than just solely live online exams. And most importantly, periodic consultations ensure that both educators and students have the best possible experience. So we have to remember that in this entirety, we're not just working or studying from home. We're working and studying while there is a global pandemic happening outside. With that, thank you very much. You can contact us through the link and email found below. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Briones, for your sharing. Like previous presentation, if you would like to ask any questions if you have questions for Dr. Briones, you can post it in the chat box, or you can just unmute yourself and voice out directly. I can see that there is one from Marian. What is the frequency of the online meeting or discussion? Where the teacher had the online discussion. As to the self-paced flipped classroom approach, how many modules per week do they take?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Usually, specifically in our class, they meet two time. We have two uh, targeted schedules in a week for one subject. One of the meetings is asynchronous, wherein they can actually watch the videos on their own pace, while the other meeting would usually be synchronous uh, classes wherein it doesn't last more than 1 hour. So that way, every week they have one synchronous, one asynchronous approach. And then usually after every 2 weeks, we allot at least one meeting just for the assessment themselves, wherein we don't really have any discussion. Rather, the teachers are just available in the Zoom classroom, and students can come in and then ask us, Sir, uh, what do you mean by this, or this? We usually give the guidelines of the assessments at least 2 weeks ahead. Thank you very much for that question.
Are there any questions from the floor? We still have a couple of minutes left. If you have further questions, I guess we can use the remaining time to post it in the Zoom chat, and then Dr. Briones can address that later. So if no more questions, I guess thank you, Dr. Briones, for sharing, and thank you all for participating.